So now let's talk about the fall. So once fall season started to roll around and the weather started to get a little bit cooler, I was trying to prepare for what would definitely be a difficult part of the semester, which is when the campus kind of does shut down. I think this is largely just due to the weather and it's kind of something that you get used to. But the nice thing was I did have a bunch of close friends who I was living near and some other new friends that I had just recently made that made the experience a lot more enjoyable. I think I also realized that the car was kind of indispensable at this point because whenever we were bored, we would at least have an opportunity to either go get food, go to the mall, or at least just do something interesting. I think this part of the semester was actually my favorite, mainly just because I was making new friends in a time that I really didn't think I could. Not to mention, I was getting closer to my friends that I was living near, and overall, I just felt that my college experience was much more positive. This also got me excited because looking back at my freshman year, it just seemed like everything was working a lot better. One thing I learned during this period that was really helpful was to invest myself in these friendships. I think I realized that this kind of social interaction, especially in a time when we all felt isolated, was extremely beneficial to just like my general well-being and also beneficial to keeping my motivation up. I think we're all struggling through this together, so for us to be able to hang out and try to not let it bother us was mutually beneficial. I think the unhappiness that I was feeling freshman year, which was also partially due to me not being ready to graduate from high school to college, started to dissipate a little bit more as I got closer to other friends that I was making at the time. And this actually leads into another thing I learned during this time, which was that college really is about growing up. Freshman year, it was difficult for me to even think of the idea that I wouldn't be close to my high school friends anymore. But I think what I realized during my sophomore year is that you kind of have to change your mindset when it comes to high school and college. I wouldn't really say that I ever moved on from my high school friends or left that chapter of my life behind me. I think it was more so that I started to look at my life like one big blob instead of chapters of a book, because I realized that staying in touch with my high school friends is completely up to me. You don't just automatically lose touch with people. It's something that might happen naturally as you go through your life. But if you don't want to lose that closeness, you don't have to. It's well within your power to stay close with both your high school and college friends. I think this was also really helpful for me because during my freshman year, I wasn't able to let go of two halves of my life, but my sophomore year, I realized that I didn't have to. So if you're someone who's scared about going to college, or if you're someone who's in college and feeling like you don't know whether to let go of your high school friends or not, just know that you don't have to. You can honestly choose who your friends are and stay as close to whoever you want to as you feel. So just to clarify, I would say we're at about November now. So at this point, I think I had a really solid friend group that I was able to interact with consistently, and then a bunch of other friends that I was still close to that I just didn't get to interact with as frequently because of COVID regulations. Even though the weather started getting colder and it was less appealing to go outside, I think me and my friends still tried to make the best of it, and we went on hikes, we went to the diner, and we did a bunch of other stuff that kept our motivation up to just enjoy the college experience. I think everyone who's been to Rochester knows the Rochester sad boy hours that happens when you hit dead winter, and we were trying our best to avoid that going into winter. But naturally, as the workload picked up and stuff, we were all definitely feeling the effects of not only the weather, but the workload and college in general. So another thing that's kind of important to keep in mind is that college isn't always fun. I'm sure not many people actually believe that, but it's just an important thing to keep in mind kind of always, so that it doesn't hit you like a truck when something bad happens or you just start feeling the negative sides of college. Like I said before, college is about growing in a lot of different ways, so it's important that you're aware of the changes in mindset and the thoughts that'll run through your head as you're going through college. You get a lot more independence and a lot more time to think for yourself, especially since you're probably not working all the time like you might have in high school. or at least that was my experience. So around November, I actually did end up moving out of my double with Brent into a much smaller single of my own. Like I said, this was mainly because of COVID, so that neither of us were at higher risk. I also just wanted to make sure that I wouldn't keep up Brent too late when I was studying, and since I did stay up a little bit later than he did, I just didn't want that to be a problem for the entire semester. I think this was actually nice. I really liked having a room of my own in a college dorm. And I think this ties into another thing I learned, which is that in college, you actually get the opportunity to be really independent. And I would say that having this single is definitely what taught me that. Having a room to yourself away from home is really strange because you actually feel like an adult. This was a really big change for me, and it was also a really big impactful part of my sophomore year because it also taught me how to be more responsible and kind of how to grow up a little bit. I think there are a lot of benefits to having a roommate, especially when you're friends with them, because you're able to keep each other in check and do favors for each other, and also you have that extra little bit of company, which is always fun to have. This means that, when I moved into my single, I definitely had to be more responsible with how I was spending my time, I guess. College is fun and you can do a lot of fun things, but in the end, it is still college, so I will say a lot of my semester was spent doing work, whether that was academic work, extracurricular activities, or freelance work on the side. I think my fall semester turned out really great. I had an amazing time, and I think it was actually a really great experience because it made me excited for what was to come for the rest of my college experience. And it's kind of funny because that's honestly the rest of my fall semester. We ended up leaving at the end of November, a little bit early, and that was the end of our fall semester, and we had winter break until February 1st, which was the start of our spring semester.